All right, welcome to Stand Up Memories. Here we are again. I'm Peter Bales. This is Jackie the Joke.
The whole time you're thinking I'm going to break in and interrupt you. The whole time I could tell you were just so tense. And you thought, I'm going to get through the introduction.
Jackie.
And you didn't.
The Joke Man Martling. I thought
we
it was
haven't
odd.
done this in a while.
We haven't.
This is great fun.
Season 5, and what a guest we have. We have an actor. We have a comedian. We have a super podcaster. The very funny, the very talented Tony Walker. There he is.
How about that? That's just one person?
That's one person.
That's one person.
I thought he was talking about somebody else.
He is multi-talented, multifaceted, and what we call in history a Renaissance man.
Oh, Jesus.
My goodness.
You know,
Somebody
like anything, if you go on too far and push it too much, then all of a sudden everybody questions everything that came before it.
Absolutely.
Now people are thinking, is he really in show business? No, you absolutely are a Renaissance man. And
somebody who does a lot of things. Somebody who's well-rounded.
Yeah, I met Tony. They came, him and his compadres came to Jokeland. I don't know what we were discussing, but I was intrigued by his Knock 'em Dead comedy troupe. And you guys came over to just to hang and get to know each other, right?
It was, that's exactly what it was. We asked you to come on our show, and you said, come to my house in Jokeland. Who's going to pass up that opportunity? So that's what we did.
And it's been downhill ever since. But that's
You went
great.
on location for Jackie?
Yep. We got out of the car, first thing he said, I thought you guys would be younger. That's what he said. First thing he said was.
Well, and meanwhile, who isn't when I'm doing the talking? Who isn't young? But it was great, and I'm glad you came, and I've done
Well, let's
your
tell the
show
audience what we're
zillions
talking
of
about
times.
here. Tony, you have a very successful podcast. Why don't you tell our audience about it? Starting with the name of it.
Okay. It's called the Knock 'em Dead Comedy Show. It's a podcast that we do over at Governor's Comedy Club. We've been doing it a little over 6 years now. So, and we've had you guys on a bunch of times. Jackie's become a good friend of the show. A lot of great comedians have come on, and people of interest, musicians, and it's great. We're on 5 days a week, which is a lot.
It's always fun. People call in, and
yeah, they call and we go live, so we read their comments, on YouTube, and so everybody gets involved in whatever the topic is, and we have a good time just discussing, whatever it is.
Just going with the flow. It's kind of a Renaissance podcast.
And it's a good feel because it's right next to the green room off the actual stage
It's
at
backstage,
Governor's Comedy Shop.
backstage at Governor's. It literally is. And
That showbiz feel.
Exactly.
It has that showbiz feel.
it has that showbiz smell.
And we've had guys come right off the stage, right through the green room. They come right in. Roy
they're
Wood
lost,
Jr.
huh?
Oh, well, yes. We had one guy who's, I keep forgetting his name, Nathan somebody. He headlined, but he bombed. He totally bombed. He came off the stage through the green. He came right in and just complained for about a half hour about how bad it went. But
Complained about the audience, or
Yeah.
he complained about how crummy he was?
no, he blamed the audience. But I think, and you guys would agree, Governor's audiences are great.
And very
Great.
forgiving. Al
Yes.
Jolson famously said, it is never the audience's fault. If the place is on fire, or, no matter what happens, it's up to the
I
performer.
always say that. Do not blame the audience if you're a comedian. However, if
it's your audience.
If the sound is not working, if the air conditioning is not working, if the lights go out, then you can blame the audience. But otherwise, it's
But
your
it's still your
responsibility.
job to deal with it.
Yes,
I did
to
a show
deal
in
with it.
Pennsylvania at some Jewish center, and their little tiny sound system completely went out, and they were all in these big round 8 or 10 people round tables. It was like a rec room of a Jewish community center, and I stood on the table in the middle and worked like I was working Westbury Music Fair, but I was standing on a table, and they all said they loved the show because they appreciate the fact that you made do, as opposed to, I'm out of here. This is
I
horrible.
stood on a milk crate once and did a show. I just know I could have gotten them. I could have gotten them.
He had to top me. He had to top me.
I did a show where the electric went out once. It was a 55 and over community, so everybody went home and grabbed flashlights and torches and whatnot, and we did the show. We did the
Seriously?
That's
swear to
great.
you, yeah.
I love that.
Oh, it
That's-
actually created a fun atmosphere. We had a great time. Actually.
Oh, that is funny. That's fun. That's
yeah,
fun.
it was. It was a lot of fun. Yeah.
Wow.
I've done a show where a fight broke out in the audience.
Oh, was that when the guy didn't like your act and came up on stage?
He charged the stage.
Actually, a fight, like between, or are you making a joke?
A real fight, physical blows being thrown.
Did you stop?
I stopped and I waited it out. And the audience was stunned and they were broken up and they were taken outside. And the audience wants to have a fun night. They still want the night to work.
Absolutely.
And I went back to work and they were laughing and the night was not lost.
It's a weird thing now these days because, you know, with TikTok and social media, everybody's posting the crowd work and it's not always going well. And that seems to be a more common thing now. And people are charging the stage or they're throwing something. You know,
Because they want to be
they want to be a part of it.
superstars.
Right.
You know.
And I don't know, do you find that? Because it seems like the younger guys are coming almost to expecting that now.
Yes, I do find that.
Yeah.
You know, that reminds me.
See, I'm lucky. My audience is so old they don't even have cell phones, you know. So
Early 80s, I come into the comic strip and the show's ongoing. And I said to Jerry Seinfeld and Larry Miller, who had already been on, and I said, how's the show going? And Seinfeld goes, let me put it this way. None of the comedians tonight are trying to do well. We're just trying to hold the stage as our own territory. Isn't that a great line?
it's, you know.
Oh,
You know, I remember it hadn't happened, knock on wood, in zillions of years, but in the old days, somebody'd heckle you, and you'd like let one or two go, and then you'd fight back. You didn't want to answer every time because you didn't want to get a dialogue going. And eventually, the guy'd be drunk, or the woman would be drunk, and they'd literally come and they'd take him out. You know, take him out, you know, kick him out, which is so weird because it just really puts a weird vibe in the place, and that was always such a challenge. And like you said, very often you could snap them right back in because they're there to have a good time. But when you finally, you know, I always tell people if there's a problem, I tell the club, you come and get them and take them out. Don't make me say,
absolutely right.
get this guy out of here,
And
because
Tony-
then I'm the bad guy.
Right.
you
Tony,
know?
ironically, every time they threw a drunk out of the club, Jackie knew the guy.
or else it was me.
So Tony, talk to me. How is comedy going for you? What's the best part of it? And to be honest, you know, on this show, we talk about the good, the bad, and the ugly.
Sure.
What are you liking about stand-up comedy? How long you been doing it? And what drives you crazy about stand-up comedy?
I've been doing it a little over 4 years. I've been
Okay,
doing
he's
it.
a newbie.
Yes, definitely a newbie. But I've been doing, I Knock 'em Dead Comedy, the podcast, the name comes from a comedy troupe that I have. We do audience interactive murder mystery, comedic murder mystery shows, dinner theater. And
So you're familiar with being on stage
Right.
and going for the laugh.
I've been doing that for almost 30
Right,
years.
right.
So yeah, so that part of it, you know, timing I'm good with. The challenge is being up there alone. That is a first for me.
It's a different world.
Completely different
You
world.
know, my whole thing playing on stage with a partner, you know, you could share, you know, if it's not going so good, you look over at him
Exactly.
or her, you know.
Yeah.
There's a comic that I know, a great guy named Jeff Bosey. And
Did you say great comic?
I said a great guy.
Oh, great guy. Okay.
So
But
you know this
hire
guy.
him-
Oh, yeah.
Let's explain this to the audience.
Okay.
You hire him to be in a production,
Yes.
and he plays
He plays my daughter.
your daughter. He gets dressed up in drag,
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah.
and but I understand he's great and hysterical at this. And he
Yes.
took me aside and he told me in confidence, he goes, "Don't tell anybody, but I love dressing up."
That
Now,
was
what-
long
Can
before
you
he worked
say
for
that
me.
on TV?
Yes. It's a great. What's the show? What's the name of the show?
Well, we have a few different shows.
Yeah.
We have a mob-themed show. We have
Okay.
a redneck wedding, and then we have an '80s themed show. But you know, they're all murder mysteries. You have your nerd, you have your bombshell, you have a host, you have a guy who's flamboyant. Like it's all the same characters.
Did
There's
he
a formula to it.
audition to play a
No,
woman?
I asked him. It was kind of going back to like Milton Berle. You know,
Tell the truth. You met in a drag bar.
Oh, no.
Yeah, looking for male ad. Yeah, that's how we met.
These shows are very popular and very funny.
Yeah, we have a great time.
Now, how do people?
No, don't
book them?
skip over this. How's he? I'm just one question. How does he look as a woman? Does he look like a man dressed as a woman, or does
Yes.
it look?
Well, again, like the old Milton Berle, it's a gag. It's not, you know, it's not like today where, you know, they're really seriously in drag. It's like Milton Berle.
Okay,
It's
I got
all-
it.
Put it
So
this
go
way,
ahead.
Jackie.
but it's only an improvement for Jeff. He can only look
when
better.
Jeff is dressed in drag for this show, he's a 2-bag number.
Ah,
That is a reference to an old Rodney Dangerfield joke that Jackie gave to Rodney that knocked Johnny Carson literally back from the desk.
the joke is the girl's so ugly, she's known as a 2-bagger. That's a girl that's so ugly, you not only got to put a bag over her head, you got to put a bag over your own head in case her bag rips, which is so great. And that doesn't mean I wouldn't follow you and see this show and,
I want to
and
see
try and
this
hit
show.
on her.
How do people book it? What do they do?
Knock'emDeadComedy.com.
Knock'emDeadComedy.com for all things Knock 'em Dead Comedy. So you have these shows and you have
Now,
your,
each of these, like the mob one
Yeah.
and the hillbilly one, is it the same troupe? Or is
Oh, yeah,
there a
it's all-
different troupe for each?
Well, it's not like a typical theater run where, you know, for these weekends you're going to be at this place. So I do have some reserves, you know, but I have a set cast of regulars, and we just we rehearse all year round so that we're always ready for
Lot of fun.
whatever show. Oh, we have a great time.
a lot of fun.
So who is hiring you? Like a PTA or a comedy
Corporate
club
events,
or-
fundraisers, restaurants, private parties, anything.
There you go.
anything. Yep. Yeah.
So let me ask you, 4 years, how is it going in stand-up? And what would you say to somebody who's just starting? What have you learned in 4 years? What to do, what not to do? What to expect?
I think reading the audience is a big deal. In fact, you know, when we're taping this, we were talking before it went on the air. I saw this morning, Tom Kelly just put out his podcast with you where you guys are talking politics, and you nailed it. You know, you want to make 100% of that audience laugh, not 60%, not 40%, and that's spot on. So
So you don't go up there and say, I love the Yankees and I hate the Mets.
right.
Exactly. And in fact, I talk about that to my comedy students, people who want to start out in stand-up comedy, and go to standupuniversity.com.
I'm not going to say anything about you plugging your stupid university. See, did you see he nudged me
I
to
saw
break
that.
his chops.
No, I nudged him to say,
It's a great
I'm
class.
about to irritate you. That was an about to irritate you nudge. But I do say that. New Yorkers are very passionate about the Yankees and the Mets. If you say you're one fan or the other, you can divide the audience.
Right.
Politics, it's even more
Forget it.
intense.
Right.
And I simply want
I'm even
100%.
hesitant sometimes to say I like women because you don't know what's going to happen. You don't know who's out there. That your friend who dresses up as a woman could be out there, and look how confused he is, right? So I don't want to get anybody upset. You know, I try to dress as a man, but I don't defend it in any way. I don't have any idea what I'm talking
All right,
about.
Jackie
You
has
know
now
that.
irritated me back.
You know, we haven't done this in a while, so I didn't realize at first that he was nudging me about, look at this, I'm plugging my show. I thought he was saying, I teach comedy, and he was nudging me like, you could use a few lessons type thing.
See,
That's
what
what
I
you thought too. Yes.
Either that or because you're old, maybe he was trying to keep you awake. I'm
Right,
not
right.
sure.
They're not mutually exclusive.
Although I must tell the audience, I once never test Jackie. Don't go up to Jackie and say, I'm going to stump you with a joke, because you're not going to stump him. I got a joke from an 1890s joke book. 1890s.
1890s.
And I ran the joke by him, and I did not stump him.
It's all the same jokes since Antony and Cleopatra, since Adam and Eve.
Since Adam and Eve.
The
a lot of
first
people
joke on record
confuse
is what?
Antony and Cleopatra.
First joke on record is about what?
I have no idea.
Oh, okay. I just
What-
heard the
what is
first
it?
joke on.
First
I don't
joke.
know the actual joke, but what the subject matter.
Stand back, Eve. I don't know how big
First
this thing's
joke on
gonna
record
get.
is a fart joke. Actually, I just read that the other day. It's all right here.
Going back to
Where? I mean,
Pagocchio or Pagaccio or
maybe
something like
ancient
that.
Greek theater.
I want to say, like, yeah, 1700s, if I'm not mistaken.
Well,
Don't hold me
Joke
to
books,
that.
you know, this is one of the things that's always made me nuts because, you know, there's joke books dating back, you know, to like the year 1200, or even you go back to the Joe Miller's Jests, which are horrible jokes, and they made that joke book just to break his balls. And then he became famous for having this joke book. But these old joke books, all of a sudden they're like, holy mackerel, I can't believe that priests are fooling around with young boys and altar boys and blah, blah, blah. And oh yeah, and they were doing that in the 50s. These old joke books, half of the jokes are about priests taking advantage of the altar boys and the altar boys getting it on with the bishops. And that's going back hundreds and hundreds of years. You put men and boys in the same situation, you know, they all have testosterone and that stuff's going to happen. Nothing changes. Just like the jokes going back hundreds and hundreds of years are fart jokes and poop jokes and vomit jokes and pee jokes, because people have been doing that forever and it's always funny.
Absolutely.
I don't care if it's
Wow,
a caveman standing there and his wife farts. He's not going to laugh.
Right.
And imagine after eating a dinosaur, what it would smell like. Oh
That
my
is as
God.
Close, that is as close to a diatribe as we've had on this podcast.
Well,
since we
sometimes
started.
I have to make a stand.
You do. And sometimes after you make a stand, it's time to rest. Okay, now.
Peter drinks tea.
I do. I do. Sometimes even chamomile tea. All right, thank you. All right.
What do you say to a blind man?
What?
Take TNC. That's a 1950s reference to Lipton commercial.
Okay, a lot of our audience got that. Thank you. Tony, how tough is it getting stage time for comedians starting out today?
I feel it's pretty tough. I personally, I don't like. You can get stage time if you go to a bar. It seems like every bar and pizza place is doing
Open mic nights.
Well, yeah, and I'm not a fan. I don't like competing with the whatever game is on and whatever else, the coffee maker. So
Yeah.
for me personally, my time is even more limited because I'm just going to Governors and maybe the city, but that's rare for me. But so I'm staying there. So it's tough to get stage time to really hone it.
Because even though there's so many places, it seems like there's more and more and more comedians. I'll tell you, there's certain places along the way, and I'll never forget, it was probably 20 years ago, I don't know how many years ago, the first time I heard the concept that you can get on stage if you bring enough people. Like if you have to bring 10 people or 5 people, and if you do, then you can get stage time. I'm like, that's crazy. But then it became the norm, right?
Oh,
They didn't have that, of course, for the longest time when we started out, and now there are clubs in Manhattan, I haven't heard of it on Long Island, that charge.
Some
new
of the
comedians.
local producers are doing that on the island. Some of them.
Charge the
are.
comedians.
They are. Charge the comedians to go on.
Or getting them to bring people, one or the other.
One or the other.
Yeah.
One way or another.
Right.
But once you get the feeling of doing well.
If they buy a pizza, you can come back next week. Jeez, that's not even an exaggeration.
No, I know
probably.
it's not. But you love the feeling of doing well.
Oh, what's better than that, right?
What's better than that? I always say it's better than sex. We were just talking to Bobby Collins, and he agreed. Killing an
Well,
audience.
that's because you can remember the last time you were on stage.
Exactly.
See?
Exactly. But it is.
It is.
Killing an
it
audience
better
is
than sex.
better than sex. Maybe not in a car like you do it, but for the most part, stand-up comedy.
I want to
comedians
make
will-
love with the lights on. Close the car door.
I know you've heard that in real life. That's supposed to be a joke.
I do not deny it. I do not deny it.
So
Wow.
you tell us,
Okay.
Tony. You're a podcaster. What is the best thing that makes a podcast work, and what doesn't? What drives you crazy? You've been doing it a long time. You must have had.
Do you get feedback from the callers
Yeah.
in real time?
Usually it's more the comments that are coming through, You know, because we're streaming live on YouTube.
I guess that's what I meant. Where they actually type.
Oh yeah, some
slow
of them,
down, speed up, shut
they'll
up.
tell you, they'll tell you flat out, please tell this guy to shut up, or please bring this guy back. I get a lot of that type of feedback, and for me personally, I rely on that. To me, that's what it's all about for me. That interaction. I feel that's kind of like our niche.
That's the equivalent of the audience laughing or not laughing.
Right.
You know.
You get a feel of if you're doing it right, because. And we've talked about it, and we've talked about it with Michael. You get into the algorithms and the numbers, and if we knew the science or the magic, right, we'd be doing it all the time, and we'd be doing it right, so to speak. But the numbers can be fooling. You know, there's so many different things to look at. For me personally, in fact, I just had a guy. I meant to tell you, my wife had her high school reunion this weekend. So Saturday night, went to the reunion, and I'm, one of the spouses who was dragged there, so I don't know anybody. I get to talking to another guy.
And your wife is going, got him.
Oh, yeah.
Got him.
Some of the guys are still paying her the money they owe. So I'm talking to another spouse who got dragged there too, and we're just talking. He says, so what do you do? And I tell him, about the podcast and governors. The next day, they're all meeting again for breakfast. So I meet with this guy again. He goes, I watched your show. I said, oh, really? He goes, I got to check out this guy, Peter, because you were just on my show a few days ago.
Wow.
He said, I got to check out this guy, Peter. He goes, but now I'm going to watch your show regularly. And,
wow.
But to me, that's how I gauge how it's going.
And that's the ultimate compliment.
Right.
And the trick is have that guy, clone that guy.
Right.
Not clone him, but get that same reaction.
Exactly.
What is odd here is that you just gave me a compliment and Jackie is letting it go without...
I was not done, but you might as well grab it and run.
Well, to be nice though, of course, Jackie is one of our more popular
Did he
guests.
have the sound on?
There you go.
Come
on.
Now are you happy?
There you go. Come on.
You're a douche. I was going to let you have the compliment.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Well, and it was probably the first time you've been on our show that you were able to speak.
I've been, I was on solo.
Who is this guy? I want proof.
What, the guy who told me that? What, you want me to call him?
Now,
I want him
I've been on.
Jokeland@AOL.com. JOKELAND@AOL.com. If that poor unfortunate soul is watching, please email me and tell me how much you enjoyed Peter Bales on Tony's Morning Governor's Show. It's the Knock 'em Dead comedy show, right?
Correct.
Knock 'em Dead comedy
Knock 'em
show.
Dead podcast.
Because obviously Peter knocked him dead.
Usually I was there solo. Usually I'm with Jackie and we have a blast on
Absolutely,
the show.
yeah.
But I don't get to say much. Usually I just lean in and say, take a pill.
You do 90% of the talking.
I do
How
not.
dare you say that? I only talk to interrupt you or to remind you that you're being dull. That's my only job. Right?
What I actually love about it is because you're so known for the jokes, and you come on a show like that, and you just bust our chops, and we have a lot of fun. And that, to me, that's a side that a lot of people don't see enough of you. You have so many great stories, and you're so quick with picking on people.
Well.
No,
we do have fun. We do have fun.
We have fun. I think if you're having fun in a podcast, it comes across to the audience.
I think so, yeah.
On podcasts, on stage. One question. You do these shows with these guys. Do you ever do stand-up with one of those guys or girls as a partner? Or have you ever thought of trying that?
We did once. One of my former co-hosts, we did... We were doing the podcast, and James came in. It was an afternoon. It was summertime, around this time of year. They had kids, a camp in the show, and they had a magician, and this guy was bombing. The kids hated him. So James actually came in and he said, I need you guys to go on stage and just entertain. We got to get this magician out of here. And this is before I had ever done anything, any stand-up. I was like, well, what are we going to do? He gave us 10 minutes to, warning, and he wanted us to do 20. So the two of us went out there, and we let the kids vote. We were telling bad dad jokes on purpose, and the kids had to vote who were telling the worst jokes.
That's good.
Which, thank
That's
goodness,
smart.
and it totally worked.
Did my act.
But just the other night, I was at Governor's Friday night, and there were these twin brothers, Greg and Rob they're called. They're out of Staten Island. And it was a duo act. I don't know about you guys, I haven't seen a duo act in ages. Fantastic. I loved it. I hope to see these guys again. Greg and Rob, they were called.
They were just playing off each other, or was straight man and a...
It wasn't your usual like Abbott and Costello straight man, but they were kind of like almost like you guys. They were throwing each other softballs. I think it's been they haven't worked out, but they were doing a little crowd work.
That's a fun thing because you don't see that.
Yes,
anymore.
and what the audience needs to understand is that was a camp show for young kids who don't really pick up on adult material and wouldn't have been appropriate. You went up and you improvised, and that's what comics have to do.
Right.
I've done camp shows, and you just have to do old jokes, and you have to adjust to a very, very young, they're 12, 13, some of them.
Right.
And
but going back before, I was talking about timing and whatnot, and I think I actually talked to you about it. When you opened for Bob Nelson, or hosted for Bob Nelson, what was that, maybe a year or so ago?
Yeah, no, it was just me and Bob,
Yeah, I couldn't, I mean, you're one of my favorites as it is, and you're one of everybody's favorites, but I've never seen you do nothing but crowd work before, and I was completely blown away, because crowd work, that could bomb really fast, or it can be amazing, depending on how you work it.
But he is a master at it.
Right.
Not to give him a compliment.
Well, I'm uncomfortable with you behaving like this, being so nice.
But you got to understand, if for 30 years you do the same thing every night, of course.
Good. He's back to being normal.
Of course it's going to work.
Hey, listen, you talk about a camp show. I used to have this in my act. I used to work at a...
You dropped something?
I dropped something from my act. You'll see why. I used to work at a fat camp. The salary wasn't much, but I used to get like $40 for a Snickers.
And you can't do that anymore.
That's funny. Come on. Hey, listen. Tony, you have been great. You are you're a great podcast guest because you're a great podcast host. Now let's tell the audience, Govs.com is where you go to find everything Governors, who's going to be there, when and where the shows are. And there are 3 Governors clubs, including the flagship in Levittown. And for Knock 'em Dead Comedy, they go where?
Knock'emDeadComedy.com.
All right. And for all of the shows that Governors has, they go where?
Pretty much YouTube. YouTube.com/Govs Comedy Club Podcast.
All
that is
right.
where the shows are. Yep.
Tony Walker.
Facebook too.
And I'm going to say October 19th, because I don't know when this is going to air. I'm going to be at the Brokerage with you.
Yeah, it's going to be me and Jackie. Jackie is the star of the show, headlining, and you'll see when you get there that I'm propping him up.
And you'll be doing crowd work?
No, you know what? He gets a great crowd, and we have so much fun.
We really do.
And
I hate to agree with him. You
and
know
Jackie's,
that.
and I say this, he's the best joke teller on the planet, and it's about fun, and that's why, I'm not gonna, and Jackie's not gonna talk about politics and controversial things. When you're there at the club for that night, you're all together, you're an audience family, you want to forget about work and all the stress from the week, and just laugh together. And if you're not,
so we should end this podcast, as long as you're talking about doing a camp show and children's show. This guy hires a clown for his kid's 5th birthday party, and the kids all get gathered on the floor, and the clown comes out and he says, "All right, kids, guess what I've got in my pocket?" And the first kid says, "Is it candy, mister?" He says, "No, it's not candy." "Is it a toy, mister?" "No, it's not a toy. It's my penis." And the father comes over and grabs the guy and says, "What the hell is wrong with you, you jerk? I'm calling the cops." He said, "No, listen, I do this show at night too, and sometimes, I'm a little hungover, and I did an adult show last night, and I got a little confused. Just give me another chance." The guy says, all right. He goes out and says, "All right, kids, try and guess what I got in my pocket." And the kid says, "Is it candy, mister?" "No, it's not candy." He said, another kid says, "Is it a toy, mister?" He says, "No, it's not a toy." And he turns to the father, he says, You better call the cops because it's my penis again.
That's Jackie.
We can get away with that, right?
You
Can we get away with that?
Yes.
If we can get away with you making fat jokes about the poor kids.
Well, you just made a
that
pedophile
control-
joke.
They
for God's
can't control themselves.
right.
They can't control
All
themselves if they eat like pigs and blow up like a...
I want to thank Tony Walker of Knock 'em Dead Comedy. And this has been Stand-Up Memories with, yes, Jackie the Joke Man Martling. I am Peter Bales. We got to have you on again. You're so much
Oh,
fun.
would love to.
Great job, Tom.
And if I could quickly just say, to be invited by you guys, you know, Peter Bales and Jackie Martling, I mean, that's, to me, that's the equivalent of a comedian getting invited by governors for the first time to take their stage. You know, that because that's like the Mecca, and you guys are.
Thank you.
Yeah,
That's a compliment
absolutely.
to both of us.
Don't cut him off. You got any more compliments?
No.
We appreciate you.
And we'll see you next time on Stand Up Memories.
Tune in again. Tune in again.